Forming value judgments and impressions about people solely based on their physical appearance is completely natural, and in fact, those first impressions we make can strongly influence our social decision making. And this phenomenon is certainly no exception when it comes to the task of voting in the political realm. In fact, it's been demonstrated that the value judgments made about political candidates' faces alone served as strong predictors of actual election outcomes. And this is the context of the current study I'll be summarizing, conducted by researchers at the Montreal Neurological Institute in 2015, who sought to determine the extent to which a particular brain region in the frontal lobe influences social trait assessment and the making of political decisions. That frontal lobe region is the lateral orbitofrontal cortex, also known as the LOFC for short, which is found on both hemispheres and which, along with its broader, more surrounding area known as the ventral frontal lobe, has been long implicated in value-based decision-making. However, very few lesion studies before this experiment have actually treated the human LOFC with focus, and certainly none at all within a socio-political context. And this is what gave the researchers the motivation to carry out this novel study. Specifically, the study tests the effects of LOFC damage in humans on a political choice task, asking the question of whether this region is critical for judging social attributes from faces, for applying that information in making voting decisions, or both. And it was hypothesized that the LOFC plays a key role in mediating or forming the link between social trait assessment and voting choice. The study involved an experimental group made up of patients with LOFC damage, confirmed by either MRI or CT scans, along with two control groups. The first control group comprised patients who had frontal lobe damage, but which excluded their LOFC, and the second control group comprised healthy subjects who had no brain damage or illness at all. The subjects of each group were made to perform a simulated election voting task in which they chose a preferred candidate from 30 pairs of real but unknown politicians' facial images, and then afterwards they rated each of the 60 total faces on a scale from 1 to 10 based on two traits of attractiveness and competence. Then, using calculated statistics from each of the groups, a logistic regression model was constructed in order to determine the predictive power that each of the group's ratings had on their voting choices. What the researchers found was that the assessment of both traits by the healthy control group had strong predictive power for their voting choices, as did the non-LOFC frontal damage control group. However, the LOFC damaged experimental group, while showing relatively strong predictive power for their voting choices on the basis of attractiveness ratings, showed essentially no correlation at all between their perceived competence from faces and their voting choices. Therefore, overall, this well supported the main hypothesis, since it demonstrated that although an intact lateral orbitofrontal cortex may not be necessary for judgment of social traits based on physical appearance, it does appear to be essential for linking or applying that information in the process of political decision-making. Finally, it should be noted that the results of this experiment are important for various reasons, the first of which is that this was the first brain study to tackle LOFC damage with its role in political choices, and in fact among the few experiments of its time to concentrate on studying human LOFC lesions in general. Secondly, previous fMRI studies have linked the LOFC with either social evaluation or with economic decision-making, but this study uniquely brought together those two streams of research for the first time by elucidating the LOFC's role in linking the two processes. Thirdly, this study simply expands our current understanding of voting behavior, which can benefit other fields like neuropolitics or even social psychology. And finally, it simply contributes more new information into the mechanics of value-based decision making, which thus provides new insights as related brain studies continue to be carried out. Thank you.